The rain had been falling steadily for hours, turning the streets outside Tom's small apartment into shimmering rivers of reflection. Inside, the warm glow of a single lamp barely reached the corners of the cramped living room, where toys and scattered books bore witness to a life lived in tight quarters. Tom moved quickly between the stove and the counter, stirring a simple pot of soup while keeping one eye on Lily, who was perched on the edge of the sofa, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Daddy, can you tell me a story?" she asked, her voice soft but insistent. He smiled tiredly, ruffling her hair, and promised her one as soon as dinner was ready. The storm outside added a sense of urgency to their routine. The wind rattled the window panes, and the sound of rain slapping against the glass made every shadow seem more ominous. A sudden knock at the door startled them both. Tom froze mid-motion, his spoon hovering above the pot. Another knock followed, more insistent this time, and he frowned. Visitors were rare in their building, and strangers even rarer. He exchanged a glance with Lily, who clung a little closer to his side. Peering through the peephole, he saw her, a young woman, drenched from head to toe, her dark hair plastered to her face, and a small suitcase clutched in trembling hands. Her eyes, wide and anxious, met his through the glass. She spoke quickly, her voice almost drowned by the storm, apologizing for the intrusion and explaining that her car had broken down, that she had nowhere else to go. Tom hesitated. In his life, caution had been a survival tactic. Letting a stranger into their home was risky, and his protective instincts for Lily flared immediately. Yet there was something about her fragile, shivering, utterly human that tugged at him. He glanced at his daughter, whose small hand rested on his arm. "Daddy, please." Lily's innocent plea echoed in his mind, and he knew that his decision was as much about kindness as it was about his own conscience. Taking a deep breath, he unlocked the door, stepping back to let her in. The moment she entered, the warmth of the apartment enveloped her, and the scent of wet clothes and rain gave way to the faint aroma of soup simmering on the stove. Tom handed her a towel, which she accepted with a grateful smile, shaking out her hair as she tried to dry herself. Lily immediately jumped up, offering her stuffed rabbit and chattering about the day's little adventures, while Tom retrieved a dry change of clothes from the closet. The girl, whose name he learned was Emma, thanked him softly, her voice tinged with relief. That night, as the storm raged on outside, the apartment felt smaller yet fuller. Tom watched as Lily fell asleep with her new friend reading quietly beside her, the soft lamplight casting gentle shadows across the room. He couldn't have known then that this brief encounter, a single act of kindness born from a rainy night and a small apartment, would mark the beginning of a chain of events that would change their lives forever. The ordinary had become extraordinary, and in the quiet hum of the storm, a fragile thread of connection had begun to form. Morning came slowly, the storm having relented to a persistent drizzle that cast a silver sheen over the streets outside. In the tiny kitchen, sunlight struggled to filter through streaked windows, illuminating the modest space where Tom carefully arranged 2 steaming mugs of tea on the chipped wooden table. Across from him, Emma sat quietly, her wet hair now tucked behind her ears and a towel draped over her shoulders. She held her cup with both hands, savoring the warmth as if it were a lifeline against the chill that had followed her in from the storm. Lily, now wide-eyed and bubbling with energy, darted between the 2 adults, asking questions about Emma's life and offering her small toys with a prideful smile. Emma's demeanor was gentle, almost serene, yet there was an unmistakable elegance in the way she moved, spoke, and even listened. She asked about Lily's favorite stories, complimented the little girl's drawings, and laughed easily at her jokes. Tom watched cautiously, a mixture of admiration and suspicion stirring in his chest. Something about Emma seemed out of place. In their modest apartment, her voice carried a rhythm and confidence that he had rarely encountered. Outside business offices or fancy events, he could never afford. Yet, she didn't flaunt it. She didn't seem interested in the tiny comforts or the limitations of his home. Instead, she engaged with them as equals, with genuine interest. As they ate breakfast, Emma shared fragments of her alone, needing shelter, navigating the city in search of some undefined purpose, but she carefully avoided specifics. Tom noticed the way she occasionally hesitated, a subtle flicker of something unspoken crossing her face. He didn't press, sensing that respect for her privacy was more important than curiosity. Yet, he couldn't help but wonder what had brought her, a young woman who clearly did not belong to this world of cramped apartments and rent notices, into the life of a struggling single father. Lily, ever perceptive, seemed to sense the unspoken questions between the adults and decided to bridge the gap herself. She tugged at Emma's sleeve and declared that they should all play a game after breakfast, chattering about imaginary adventures in princess castles. Emma obliged with a laugh, kneeling on the floor to join them, and Tom felt a pang of gratitude. In that moment, the room so small, so humble, was filled with laughter and warmth that had nothing to do with money or status. After breakfast, Tom busied himself with the routine tasks of the day, stepping out briefly to take out the trash and letting Emma and Lily watch the drizzle through the window. When he returned, he found them sitting side by side, faces pressed to the glass, sharing quiet conversation. Lily's small hand clutched Emma's, her eyes shining with a combination of curiosity and trust. Tom's heart swelled at the sight, a mix of relief and astonishment. This stranger, who had appeared out of the storm just hours ago, had already become a comforting presence, someone Lily admired and trusted instinctively. Tom realized then, as he watched them, that some connections couldn't be measured by circumstance or wealth. In their small apartment, over shared breakfast and quiet smiles, an unspoken bond had begun to form, a fragile, unexpected thread that would pull them all closer together in ways he could not yet foresee. The morning drizzler had eased into a gentle mist, softening the edges of the city outside. Inside the apartment, the warmth of the small kitchen clung to the air as Tom prepared a simple breakfast of eggs, toast, and fruit. He moved carefully, mindful not to wake Lily too early, though she had already bounded out of bed, her small feet padding across the floor in a rush of energy. Emma, seated at the table with a quiet elegance, helped Lily pull on her little jacket, adjusting her scarf and smoothing down her hair with the kind of patience that made Tom pause. There was something in the way she moved, the way she smiled at Lily's constant chatter, that made the apartment feel larger, more alive, even in its cramped corners. Breakfast was a modest affair, but Emma engaged as though it were a feast, complimenting the little tutsies Tom had managed to create, despite their limited resources. "Lily, you must be very proud of your daddy," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth and sincerity. Lily beamed, twirling her hair and nodding vigorously, delighted by the praise. Tom felt a flush of gratitude toward Emma, though he remained guarded. He had long been cautious, wary of people who might take advantage of their struggles. And yet, with her, there was a genuineness that was impossible to ignore. She asked thoughtful questions about Lily's school, her favorite games, and even the storybooks that lined the shelves, showing a real interest in their lives, rather than the circumstances that surrounded them. As they ate, Tom noticed subtle clues about Emma that hinted at a life far removed from theirs. The careful diction of her words, the quiet assurance in her posture, even the way she handled the utensils, it all suggested refinement and privilege. Yet, she did not flaunt her background, nor did she act above them. Instead, she participated fully in their modest routine, laughing at Lily's imaginative stories and responding with a warmth that made the apartment feel more like a home. Tom could not help but feel a mix of awe and curiosity. Who was this girl who carried herself with such grace, yet treated them with such humility? After breakfast, Lily ran to the window to watch the city slowly brighten as the mist lifted. Emma followed her, kneeling beside the little girl, their conversation low and filled with quiet laughter. Tom stepped back, observing the scene with a mixture of amazement and unease. His mind buzzed with questions he dared not ask, yet he couldn't deny the calm that had settled over the room. Emma had brought a sense of ease, a temporary reprieve from the relentless worries that had defined his life for years. When he returned to the table, he found Lily looking up at him with sparkling eyes. "Daddy, can she stay longer, please?" she asked, tugging at his sleeve. Tom swallowed hard, torn between caution and desire to give his daughter this happiness. There was something magical in the way Emma connected with Lily, something that transcended the ordinary routines of their day-to-day life. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine a life where kindness and trust could exist without fear, even if only for a brief, shining interval. In that quiet morning, surrounded by the lingering mist and the soft hum of the city awakening outside, Tom began to understand that some encounters are not merely coincidence. Some are meant to shift the axis of ordinary life, quietly, profoundly, and unexpectedly. opening doors that had long remained closed. The afternoon sun had begun to pierce through the lingering clouds, casting long streaks of light across the narrow streets below. Inside the apartment, the atmosphere was calm but tinged with a quiet anticipation. Tom had just finished tidying up the small living room, stacking Lily's toys and straightening the few books scattered across the table, when a low hum of engines outside caught his attention. He glanced out the window and saw a sleek black car slowly pulling up to the curb. Two sharply dressed men stepped out, their expressions unreadable, scanning the surroundings with a precision that immediately set Tom on edge. Emma, who had been sitting beside Lily on the couch, rose and moved toward the small balcony. She turned to him with a soft, composed smile that carried a weight of unspoken explanation. "Tom," she began, her voice steady yet gentle, "I think it's time I told you the truth." Tom froze, unsure what she meant, as the men outside approached the building's entrance. Emma's eyes met his, calm and unwavering. "I'm not just a traveler. I'm the daughter of a wealthy businessman. My life is very different from yours. I didn't want anyone treating me differently because of that." Tom blinked, processing her words. The elegance he had sensed in her movements, the quiet confidence she carried, the ease with which she navigated their small apartment, it all made sense now. She came from a world of privilege, one far removed from his own struggles of rent, bills, and the constant worry about providing for Lily. Yet, what struck him most was her humility. She had chosen to stay, not out of necessity, but because she wanted to, because she felt drawn to the simple warmth of their lives, the sincerity of their hearts. Lily, oblivious to the complex revelations unfolding around her, tugged at Emma's hand. "Are you leaving already?" she asked, her small voice tinged with disappointment. Emma knelt to Lily's height, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. "I might have to, sweetheart," she said softly, her eyes glistening with a mix of emotion. "But I'll never forget you, and I hope you'll remember me too." Lily's grip on her hand tightened, unwilling to let go, and Tom felt a lump in his throat. He had not expected to feel this protective, this connected to someone who had just arrived in their lives. As the black car door opened and Emma stepped toward it, Tom found himself searching for words, for some way to express the gratitude and awe swelling in his chest. Emma turned one last time, her gaze warm yet firm. "I didn't need your charity, Tom," she said, voice carrying over the soft hum of the car. "But I chose to stay because you and Lily made me feel human. That's worth more than anything money can buy." The men nodded, and Emma stepped into the car, which glided away smoothly, leaving a silent but profound stillness in the apartment. Tom stood at the balcony for a long moment, staring after the car as the city seemed unchanged, yet subtly different. The encounter, brief as it had been, had shifted something within him, a reminder that genuine kindness and trust are rare treasures, and that sometimes the most extraordinary connections arise from the simplest gestures. The warmth Emma had left behind lingered, a quiet light against the ordinary shadows of their daily life. The apartment felt unusually quiet that evening, the echoes of Emma's presence still lingering in the corners. Lily sat cross-legged on the sofa, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide and glistening as she stared out the window, hoping for one last glimpse of the sleek black car that had carried Emma away. Tom moved quietly around the small kitchen, washing the dishes from the day's meals, his hands trembling slightly despite the routine motion. His silence was heavy, but it was not emptiness. It was the weight of something precious that had briefly entered their lives and left a mark they could not yet fully comprehend. On the kitchen table lay a neatly folded envelope, its creamy paper stark against the worn surface. Tom picked it up with a cautious hand, noting the elegant handwriting, spelling out Emma's name in a few words addressed to him. Inside was a letter, carefully written, explaining that she had arranged a scholarship fund to help them, ensuring that Lily's education and their basic needs would be supported. Tom's eyes blurred as he read, realizing that Emma had gone beyond gratitude. She had transformed her fleeting visit into something tangible, a gesture that would alter the course of their lives. It was more than money, it was her belief in them, her trust, her wish to ease their burdens and give them a brighter future. Lily climbed onto Tom's lap, her small arms wrapped around him, and whispered, "Daddy, she was so nice. I wish she could stay forever." Tom hugged her tightly, his heart heavy with the complexity of emotions, gratitude, awe, and a bittersweet sense of loss. He gently stroked her hair, explaining that some people enter our lives for a reason, and even when they leave, the kindness they bring remains. Emma gave us a gift, Lily, he said softly, a reminder that even in hard times, there are good people in the world. Lily's eyes, bright with unshed tears, reflected understanding beyond her years, and for a moment, the weight of their struggles felt lighter. As nights settled over the city, Tom found himself standing by the window, gazing at the faint glimmer of lights reflected in puddles from the earlier rain. Memories of Emma, the warmth in her smile, the laughter shared over breakfast. The way she had listened to Lily with genuine care flooded his mind. He realized that life had a way of surprising you, of introducing moments that seemed ordinary at first, but carried the power to reshape your world. Emma's brief stay had reminded him that generosity and compassion were more valuable than gold, and that the simplest acts, offering a towel, a warm meal, a listening ear, could ripple outward in ways he could never imagine. Later, as he tucked Lily into bed, he whispered a promise to honor the kindness they had received, to live with the same generosity and openness that Emma had shown. Lily fell asleep with a contented sigh, clutching her rabbit, while Tom sat in the quiet apartment, staring at the letter once more. Their lives had changed, not only in the tangible ways of scholarships and support, but in the subtle, profound way of hearts opened and trust forged. And though the rain had long stopped, and the car had long gone, the memory of Emma's visit remained, a lasting light in their small apartment, a reminder that even fleeting connections can leave an eternal mark.